from our first round. How are we expecting things to go?
Well, Joe, here's the thing. We're seeing that a lot of cars haven't been out on a cloudy track, and this is kind of different than what we said. Joe, go ahead and actually, let's run through the rundown. Right, start off with practice because cars are on track. Hey, I unmuted, so I don't know what's going on.
Well, the drivers have got themselves a 35-minute plus one lap race later on today. But looking at the track itself, we've got ourselves an interesting one with lots of twists and turns, extremely technical, few places to try and overtake. And that means the qualifying is going to be a little bit more important here today. And here at Barber Motorsports Park, obviously we share this weekend with IndyCar along these 17 turns and 2.3 miles. Biggest places to watch out, though, Charlotte's Web, probably the most popular place to overtake. Turn 8, Museum Corner. That is a very difficult downhill plunge. And then turn 13 is where the tunnel is. It's a huge, huge crest. Drivers easily, Jeremy, can go off there, dip a wheel into the grass, and end their day.
Now, while there's not a lot of passing zones, technicality is going to be the name of the game. Those several passing zones we're talking about are indeed turn 1 going into Charlotte's Web and turn 8 through the Museum Corner. We want to welcome our viewers also on the World Wide Web. I know it's hard to say that in the year 2024, but this watching on the Porsche channel on YouTube or on Flow Racing. As cars are on course for this 25-minute session. It's been an interesting past couple of practices, Joe, where the name of the game mostly has been Ian Porter, but Chloe Chambers, who is the defending winner here in Cayman, has really come on to her own, and she basically led the second practice yesterday, I should say.
Yeah, she was looking extremely quick. Also, Conda found herself up to the front of the timing sheets for much of the time, but that's in the Pro-Am. Down in the Masters, Clark found himself doing pretty decently, but Joffe was hanging around since he obviously was very quick down at Sebring, taking one of the wins. He's trying to follow that one up. Keep an eye on him to see whether or not he can back that up and recover from his poor second race.
Well, saying Clark, quote-unquote, decent, he led both practices. He's been really, this season, proving himself to be a quick study as the season progresses. And I actually talked to him at lunch, and I kind of shocked him. I go, we're going to have to take you back to tech for that extra nitrous that you have in your car. Interesting, too. So we're going to talk about this throughout the weekend. A new championship will be starting next round at the Circuit of the Americas on Memorial Day weekend. It's the Endurance Championship. Now, his driver coach is none other than Andrew Davis. They're talking about pairing up. You put Andrew Davis in Joe's giving the not bad because Andrew Davis is one of the foremost endurance racers in North America. Underrated, in my opinion.
Yeah, that is not a bad choice to have with you as we check out the onboard of Rafa Martinez here. Didn't see him all that far up the timing sheets during practice. Kind of wondering if he's going to switch that around here for qualifying. Not typical to see him that far behind as he comes down the front stretch looking to start a new flying lap. As it stands right now, Nick Schaefer has our quickest lap at 28.8 and is actually a full second and a half ahead of Chloe Chambers. But these are the first couple laps. We don't know who's managed to get some clear track. In fact, honestly, they all kind of came out in a clump, and nobody's really got a lot of space at the moment in the main group.
And that was talked about in the drivers' meeting yesterday and how you need to get back. John Maskey, our race director, said, hey, you know what? Here's an example of what not to do, which would happen at Sebring. He didn't name the driver, but there was one driver who they waited, went out, and slowed up the rest of the field. And I think I remember that, too, where it's like, come on, you know. But it is tough, especially here, to find that gap because once you get out there, you can, reasonably gap somebody. And looking out at the racetrack in front of us, there's plenty of drivers who have gapped themselves already to get a good lap in. But looks like a couple of the Rafa cars actually running nose to tail with Nick Schaefer, who still has the best time of a 28.8.
Clark on the pole for the Masters currently. Ian Porter down fourth in that class. So hasn't shown the heroics that we saw from that 86 car back at Sebring quite yet. There's still plenty of time for that to change around. We're kind of keeping an eye on him because we haven't seen him have to race through the field yet, and so we're curious to see what would happen if that wound up being the case. Paige Morales, in the meantime, up and over the crest of turn 4 and then plunging down into Charlotte's Web. This is that passing zone that we were talking about that most of the drivers are going to be looking towards to maybe try and overtake. And then let's take a look at Museum Corner here. It really, I mean, nothing does this justice until you stand at this drop.
Yeah, exactly. I would say even down at the bottom, at the bowl of the turn,
Yes.
turning around and looking up and seeing the drop-off. It's probably one of the steepest drop-offs in the east of the Mississippi right now, because you got to go over to Mazda Raceway, Laguna Seca, WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca. I want to apologize to McNeil's for that one, to see a steeper drop-off. And I love this section of track right here. You and I actually during the track walk, got to watch Will Power talk about that and how he approaches it. And
yeah, absolutely.
That was actually quite interesting to do that. That's, he may be an IndyCar racer, but it's still interesting to hear another racer say, okay, this is how I'm going to attack this corner and go through there. So that was actually as we said, a very worthwhile learning experience. Paige Morales coming across the line right now. She logs in her best time of the session of a 31.7, 15th overall.
Yeah, Lonnie Unser also jumped up to 12th overall, which is 5th in class. So good to see her be able to jump up just a little bit there. Trollinger now going up into 11th position overall in the number 94. That's going to be for 6th in the Masters. So continued flux out there of cars as they find the grip in what is a very cool early morning qualifying session.
It is. It's interesting also to see the group that Paige Morales is in. She's in a group with her, Chris Hutter, and the Stephanie Dick Schaefer, who his best time, 28.8. He slowed up just a little bit, I think, to cool off the tires, but we'll see. I've got to say this, though. These Yokohama tires, they're fantastic early on, and they stay steady throughout the stint. So Chloe Chambers still with a 28.7. That's the time to beat. Nick Schaefer second. Ian Porter third, and fourth is Caroline Conda. Then you got to go to fifth for our first Masters driver, Sean McCaig, with a 30.6. That is the time to beat for Masters.
Last lap for Golan actually put himself up into 9th, which is 5th in Masters, and just crossed the line, unable to improve that time. Jason is actually here, able to watch his son race in the USF Juniors Series, also competing here this weekend. So he's keeping busy, not just here in the car, but out in the stands.
Elaine Scalzo comes into the pits to check out the crew, and what's nice for Jason is he doesn't necessarily have to worry too much now about what his son's doing, because USF Juniors is done. Now he can focus on his job, which is the first race weekend of the season. And if you're watching us on YouTube and Flow Racing, you are seeing the 70 Nick Schaefer. This is his first weekend, and we've had a couple of opportunities to talk to him, and he's actually really excited about this weekend. That car is going to race not only here, but it's going to race in a couple of other series around the country. So a nice little opportunity for Schaefer to kind of get used to this Club Sport GT4 Cayman that is running here. But the problem is, once he goes to those other series, he still has to abide by their balance of performance.
Exactly. So just small tweaks to the driving, I'm sure, and I don't think that'll be too dramatic to try and compensate for. Ian Porter just improved but stays in 3rd. Conda now in 4th down there with a 29.0. And Chloe Chambers' last lap continues to drop the bar as it is down to a 27.9 for our fastest lap of anybody. In fact, that is 9/10 quicker than Schaefer now.
Well, look at Matt Joffe just jumping up to 2nd in Masters, 6th overall with a 30.2. Michael Clark drops down to 3rd. He's still yet to improve on his 2nd lap time, but he is getting there. But still, back to the Pro-Am, you've got Nick Schaefer and Ian Porter. 0.015 seconds separates the two of them as we watch Matt Joffe saw his way around the circuit.
Yeah, you talk about sawing. He was counter-steering quite a lot down into turn 1, so I'm glad he was able to make it through there safely. We've seen a few accidents in various series down through that first corner, which is fast and blind, so you have to make sure to hit your marks just right. Paige Morales now on our screens, and switching over to Lonnie Unser as well. Lonnie still sitting in 12th, hasn't seen improvement, I think, over the last few laps, still 6th in the Pro-Am.
Of course, you and I got to sit and talk to her dad, Johnny Unser, and it's like, you always ask the driver, hey, what's your confidence level? But you got to ask the whoever their support system is, because they know them probably just as good, and they're not going to say, the driver's going to say, oh, well, I'm fine. The support system going to say, well, yeah, they're just trying to hype themselves up. But Johnny feels confident that Lonnie can really step it up. I know that they're still trying to shake through some of the gremlins this weekend that they had, but really it looks like they're starting to get those under wraps, basically.
Yep, that was honestly the big concern, it seemed like, is she had a stoppage during the first practice session, had to pull off to the side of the track. One of the Rafa racing cars just went very wide down into Charlotte's Web, so that lap is definitely no-go.
Yeah, that's Ian Porter now slowing, coming off of turn 5. He's going to kind of cool those tires off and have another go at it. We got about 13 minutes left to go in this session. Still Chloe Chambers setting the bar 9/10 of a second faster than Nick Schaefer. It's a 27.9 to a 28.8.
Right now, Sean McCaig is our quickest in the Masters. Joffy's still trying to chase him down, about 1/10 of a second between those two. Glad to see that Joffy has kind of gotten into the swing of things here. Like I said, a bit surprised at the fact that he wasn't quicker in the practice sessions, considering how good he looked over at Sebring. But it seems like he's now backing that one up, saving it for when it matters.
And that's basically all it right now, is trying to get this set up and ready for our race later on this afternoon. We'll have the lunchtime race, so if you're here and you want to see these cars, let me tell you, you're going to have one heck of a race here, as there's a bumper crop of drivers in this field this weekend, both in Cayman and GT3.
Absolutely. The Cayman Series definitely puts on a really good show. Lonnie Unser actually jumped up into 10th overall. That's going to put her into 5th now, so she's finding some more speed, with Hutter just behind her, also going quicker himself with a personal best of a 31.078.
Also, Porter, yeah, he really slowed down this past lap. 52.5 was his lap, as we see another driver going out of the pits right now. See the Rafa cars. There's Paige Morales. She comes across the line with a 34.0. Her best time was set in lap 3 with a 31.7. Watching her make their paces through turn 2. And you mentioned that we saw a lot of cars off, and so even some of the other practice sessions with Indy Next and IndyCar, where drivers were getting off in the gravel trap there. And that's easy to do. That gravel trap there in turn 2 looks really inviting.
Yeah, and honestly, you don't want to let the car get away from you into that second corner, because it's easy to get stuck in that gravel out there. So if the rear starts to come around, hope that it doesn't have enough momentum that sends you all the way out into the kitty litter. Morales really bounding over the curbs, coming down through Museum Corner and now underneath the bridge onto the back side of the circuit. This is really the fastest part of the track here. Just a bunch of sweeping back and forth S's.
Caroline Conda coming out of the pits for another go with trying to get the pole award. Back to Morales. She's already a podium finisher this season in the SCCA Super Tour Championship at NOLA Motorsports Park, where she podiumed twice in the GTX class.
Majak just flashed past us. He stays as he was 5th in the Masters class, and same thing with Golan, who just came by. Lonnie Unser now down to a 30.4. Does not improve her position, though. In fact, she's separated by 3 Masters drivers, Clark, McCaig, and Joffy. And if you missed us yesterday, they are starting with the classes intermixed. There is no difference between the cars in the classes. It is all down to driver classification, so they're all racing the same material.
Joffy in the pits right now, as well as Bill Pelichewski. Haven't mentioned Pelichewski too much. He's 15th overall with a 31.1 back a couple laps ago.
Yeah, it looks like he's taking a pause in pit lane. At times, drivers just coming in to talk to the crew, maybe having them get some tire pressures, just getting advice from the coach if they noticed anything before they head back out. Jaffe also in there right now with some of the Kelly Moss crew members just giving it the once over before he's sent back out. But Rafa Martinez right now coming down, and hitting some traffic, it looks like, coming down into the museum corner. So that is going to slow him up pretty significantly. Meanwhile, Conda, the number 84 driver, still sitting in fourth. She was briefly up at the top, but has lost that pole position since the early stages. See if she can get herself back to the front.
I saw on Instagram that she was able to have a little chat with one of her fellow countrymen, one Romain Grosjean.
Oh.
So that was that's kind of cool for some of these drivers. They're able to, talk with drivers they look up to. Grosjean obviously running in Formula One. Now he's in the NTT IndyCar Series with Hugo Hollinger Racing. And that's got to be something cool for someone who grew up watching him, make his way into Formula One and now in IndyCar.
Unless you're a Lee Diffie and constantly reminding people that he's a Swiss-born Frenchman. But
I love me some Lee Diffie.
I love you too, Lee. Yeah, no, that'd be fantastic, and I definitely have long enjoyed watching Grosjean and him going through Formula One and then over here to IndyCar and seeing how he fares. Certainly a character. Meanwhile, Lonnie Unser out on the back side of the circuit has not set a fast lap recently. I mentioned earlier she improved down to that 30.7 and trying to see how much space she needs to get up to Caroline Conda, because that's the next on her list, really.
That's going to be about a second and 1.4 seconds she needs, so not too much. I say not too much, but you can easily...
Seconds usually, it
usually is, but if you're still trying to shake out a car, of course, Lonnie Unser into the pits as well. So we'll see what adjustments the Kelly Moss crew makes, or if she goes back out. Got about 7 minutes left to go, so time, if she gets out there, gets some air pressures, time for maybe one, maybe two hot laps to see if you can set a faster time. Chambers, though, still with the fast time, she's not come back out, and really, I don't blame her with a 27.7.
Checking to see who's got good positioning here out on the track, because we were mentioning earlier about finding yourself some clear air. The 17 definitely, and the 26 also looking like they're
So Michael Clark got a fast lap that passed the last time by 29.5. Here's the thing. We saw him come up to speed real quick at Sebring, but once he got on the grounds here at Barber, it was like, night and day. He took to this track really well.
He really did. And I talked about this earlier this weekend, that sometimes drivers just click better with certain tracks. Something about it just works well with your driving style, or sometimes you're more familiar with it, and some little secrets that can help you out there. So you'll get those sort of, I wouldn't say anomalies, but the differences between the circuits and some drivers being faster than maybe you would expect.
So we see the one of Jason Golan back out on the circuit as he goes for another shot at trying to go for pole. His fast time of a 30.6, good enough for 10th overall, 5th in class. There's a 78X Schaefer on your screen if you're watching the stream. Lonnie Unser heads back out, so she's got maybe 1 or 2 laps left in her to see if she can at least get up to the top 5. And really, I think this is the break. This will be the breakthrough if she has it, because this is a new car for her. It was new at Sebring. They're still going through some teething issues there. She still had the teething issues yesterday in practice. But I think that they're finally clicking and finding something that's going to work for them.
Yeah, it seems to be, and she's kind of letting a few cars go out on track to get herself that clear air. This is not quite like IndyCar or the other open wheelers that you're seeing this weekend, where they have to worry as much about the dirty air. I mean, you do to a degree. There is some aero on these cars, but it's more just about not having the distraction, not having to worry about that car in front being slower than you, and finding yourself being held up when you can go faster out on the lap. I just noticed too that Chloe Chambers' last lap was another purple lap, and I'm trying to figure out how long ago that was.
Oh, she's been in the pits for a while.
Okay,
That was
yeah,
5.
that was a while ago.
Yeah, so she's, like I said, she set that fast lap and parked it. So we'll see. We'll see if anybody has any challenge. But Ian Porter, look at this, 28-0. He's still on. I think he's still on track. So we'll find that one out here shortly as we play Follow the Dots. One of our favorite games here. So
I don't see him. Yeah,
I don't see him. So he may be in the pits, but regardless, a front row start for Ian Porter. Still a very good start for the driver who's just making his start professionally in motorsports. The gamer turned racer, known by those on Call of Duty as Crim 6. Looking pretty good. Fennec, 4th fastest in Masters, 8th fastest overall, 30.1. So there's still some fast times out there on the racetrack. You just got to really work for them. And, yeah, we see from our cameras both Porter and Conda in the pits.
that Rafa Racing team just honestly impresses. It's
That's Morales. Conda's still on track.
okay. Conda's still out there. She sits in 3rd overall right now. She's letting the car go by, so she must be on a cool-down lap. Wonder if this is going to be her last real charge, because we only have 3.5 minutes left to go. I mean, she has enough time for 2 laps, but I can't imagine she'd be going for 2 straight hard ones.
You know, I'm also watching the 70 Nick Schaefer right here, just to the left of our broadcast position. Sounds like he might go out, but if he does, he's got maybe 1 hot lap left in him. And I don't see the JTR team risking that. Right now, 4th quick, puts you provisionally at road 2. That's a heck of a start for your first weekend here with Sprint Challenge.
Yep, I agree. And Pelichowski, who we're on board with right now, he might get a little held up by somebody there in front of him.
Hutter that's up ahead of him? Yes, it is Chris Hutter that's actually ahead of him. So I don't know if he's necessarily getting held up per se.
It looked like it briefly, and then he
briefly
sped up. Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe they're just positioning themselves, or he's just slower through that corner than Bill is, and Bill managed to make up some time through there. You can find differences like that where some are strong at some points. Pelichowski did not improve, though, on that lap.
Well, Hutter's best lap was a couple laps ago with a 30.8. So top 4 are all under a second from each other. And then you have to go to Michael Clark, who's about 0.7 of a second behind Nick Schaefer, who is your Masters fastest lap so far in this session with 2 minutes left to go on the nose.
Not seeing hardly any green out there on our timing and scoring now, so that tells me that there's a lot of drivers that have backed off that last lap or are currently backing off and are looking to try and give it a go here in a second. 1:40 left on the clock. Big correction from Lonnie Unser as she plunges down through Museum Corner. I'd say she's on a flyer.
She looks like she's on a flyer because you saw how she was attacking those bumps of the curbing there. So she's on a little bit of a squirrely moment there, heading on to the backstretch as she makes her way through turn number 12.
She's not green in either of her first 2 sectors, though, so it's not looking good for her to try and improve. Like I said, she is still in 5th, so not too shabby. I think the biggest problem for her is she's going to be separated by so many of the Masters cars if it remains as it is. Oh, my goodness. That car doesn't look like it's in the best of handling shape this lap from what we were watching on board. There were so many snap moments on the wheel.
She's about 0.4 of a second off her fast time. Myshak, Hutter, Kopczynski, all 3 of those running their fastest lap this past time by as we go down the field. Those are the only 3 that are really running. We've had 26 cars take time as Matt Jaffe having officials come check his car out. There's Chris Hutter going into turn at number 5. Last time by, the number 81 ran its fastest lap of a 30.8, 11th fastest, 6th fastest in the Pro-Am class.
Less than 30 seconds left. This is typical qualifying rules where you can complete your hot lap once the checkered flag is out, if you have started that lap before the checkered was thrown. So anybody who has already passed basically should be able to finish this one up as we count down to 0. And there is the checkered flag. Qualifying session is over. One last shot to try and see where you can place yourself.
And only about 6 cars still left on track. The 26 of Alain Scalzo will be the first one on course. He's gone green in Sector 2. So we'll see what he can do here coming off of the final turn, I should say, down the front straightaway. He will see the checker flag, and he gets his fastest lap of the session of a 30.8.
Nicely done. After that, does look like everybody behind is coming into pit lane. He was the only driver to try and finish that one out. That means our grid is now set for today's race.
And look at Chloe Chambers with a 27.9. So a good lap by her. She is your pole sitter overall and in the Pro-Am class. Alongside her will be the 86 of Ian Porter. Row 2 provisionally will be the 84 of Caroline Conda and Nick Schaefer. Row 3 provisionally the 17 of Michael Clark, who is your fastest driver in Masters with a 29.5. Then it's Sean McCaig in the 34. That rounds out row number 3.
Of course, drivers will have to pass inspection on this one, but we'll see you in a bit as we do have the GT3 Cup qualifying happening in just a moment. So stick around for more Porsche action.